Hello and welcome to the virtual open day talk for History at Cardiff. Now usually of course we would welcome all of you to campus for a range of activities, so you would meet historians in the department and hear them talking about their research as well. Because of the current health crisis, the open day is being delivered remotely. So I'm Dr. Brona Kane and I'm the admissions tutor for history here at the university. I'm also a senior lecturer in medieval history in the department. So if you do decide to come to Cardiff, we'll meet on various courses that deal with the Middle Ages. And my own research focuses on social and cultural history, including women's and gender history. And I also finished recently a book on popular culture. So if you can imagine Game of Thrones without some of the more exciting bits, that's pretty much what I work on. Now, much of my talk today is going to focus on the single honours BA history programme. But if you're a bit more interested perhaps in a joint degree course, just take what I'm saying and divide it in half. And this is because you'll be taking half your modules in history and the rest in your other subjects. So if we think first of all about why you should take a degree in history at all, we can think about what a history degree at Cardiff gives you. So why study it as a subject, and what can you actually do with a history degree? So to start with, let's look at some of the explicit aims of studying history and explore what our programme gives you in terms of critical skills. Firstly, and perhaps most importantly, it's to gain knowledge of the past. So a history degree gives you a much more in-depth understanding of the origins and causes of different types of events, both in the past and contemporary events as well. So perhaps the most distinctive aspect of history as a subject is its ability to suggest how and why things have changed across time. So all of you, if you come to study with us, you'll be exploring all of these larger processes of change and looking at why things happen in particular ways. And of course, this gives you insights into contemporary events today, into politics and the economy and so on. Our degree also gives you a sense of the complexities of the past, and this is because as academic historians, our job isn't to make moral judgments about historical figures, but to try and explain their decisions, perceptions, and consequences of their actions. So hopefully studying history with us will make you less inclined to make generalizations. So we'll think about why contemporaries in the past made certain choices by reconstructing the context of their actions. Okay, so we'll think about sort of motivations, the wider political context, and the implications of these choices that we all make. Now, we try and achieve this balance that I've just mentioned through an emphasis on the use and analysis of original documents and sources from the historical periods that we're studying. So we try and use all of this evidence, so it might be records from archives, government documents, images as well, and we try and understand past events through the eyes of the people who witnessed them, experienced them, and then wrote about them. Now, the study of history also gives you an understanding of the relationship between history itself and other disciplines. So, for instance, it interacts with branches of study of politics, of philosophy, language, and so on. And we can think about this over different periods of time. So in the 20th century, for instance, history becomes much more closely aligned as an area of study with sociology, anthropology, and literary criticism as well. Now, we also at Cardiff try and give you an insight into historical methods of doing history. And one of the key differences between history at A level and the degree is this increased emphasis that we have on interpretation and disagreement between scholars. And this is really part of the process of appreciating the fact that as historians, we all bring different expectations to our work. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're writing a sort of biased history or bad history. It's more to do with the sort of emphasis in terms of the focus that historians have. Now, we also give you the opportunity to experience researching and writing about the past yourself. And this is another way in which the university study of history differs from school history. And don't worry too much about that transition from college or school history to university level as we take you through all of that. One of the key changes here is really the transition towards evaluating work by historians, assessing its strengths and weaknesses, and producing your own argument, which you then back up with evidence. The degree at Cardiff will provide you with the skills that you need to take forward into your career. We help students primarily develop skills and habits of thinking, such as self-discipline, so the ability to take guidance from historians in the department, but then develop your work in the library through your own research. We also help foster intellectual maturity as well, so taking the evidence which you're exploring and then developing that in ways that actually reflects the body of documents that you have, and also other skills like imagination, independent thinking, and initiative. And all of these areas are incredibly popular with graduate firms, with different businesses as well. So if you don't go specifically into history, all of these skills of analysis, fact gathering, and then presenting information back to your audience, all of these are incredibly valuable. Every year we do send a number of students into the teaching profession, and that still continues to be a really major area of recruitment for us. But we also have students placed in different law firms after taking law conversion courses. Also in the media, the Cabinet Office, so civil service. So you've got a wide range of different choices. Okay, so for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to talk a bit about how the history degree actually works in practice. I guess first and foremost is the fact that we run year-long modules. So it allows you to better understand the period in which you're interested and to develop your skills of analysis and argument, partly because you're not having to get to grips with a new period, but it also gives you that sort of depth and specialism that is quite unique to the history programme here at Cardiff. Now, the course itself is taught through lectures and seminars, so you have the traditional lecture format, and then the much more collaborative seminars that you attend, usually after you've gone to the first lectures that give you a sort of broad brush introduction to subject. Then you go off and read a little bit more and go along to your seminar groups, which tend to have a much broader group discussion with everyone involved. So it isn't simply your seminar tutor. We're there to sort of help shape the discussion, but you bring your own ideas and present all of the exciting research that you've found yourself. Now, if we turn to the shape of the degree itself, the first year provides the link between studying history at school or college and degree level. And really from the outset here, we try and provide you with the teaching and skills that you need in order to make that transition, as I said. And this starts with the core module that all history students take, and this is called History in Practice. And it's a really substantial module which has an element of independent working on an essay supervised by one of our staff. So you work quite closely with one historian to produce that particular piece of assessment. Now, with this module, we have recently developed a textbook which was authored by colleagues in the department, and it's called A Practical Guide to Studying History. And within this, we have developed the topics to try and pair up with the flow of the unit, but it also acts really brilliantly as a sort of introduction to university level history as a whole. And history in practice itself is, as I mentioned, taught through a range of case studies from different periods. This might stretch from medieval slavery through to Nazi Germany, or uses of history in schools or the media today. And the lectures and seminars here encourage you not just to think about sort of approaches to history, but also to get you to think about connections between undergraduate and professional practice. And this will be really useful for those of you who might be considering going into teaching or into heritage industries. Now, in first year, you will have a choice of 2 modules from a range of 5 that are available. And as you can see, these cover quite a wide geographical and chronological range. So we have, for instance, for those of you perhaps interested in the earlier periods, we have medieval worlds, and then another module, Renaissance, Reformation and Reform. And if you're much more intrigued perhaps by modern history, 19th and 20th century, for instance, we have the making of the modern world, inventing a nation, and Asia and the West. So you can see we've got a really broad range of modules that you can take. You can also take advantage of research expertise from elsewhere in the school. So here you can see that you can take modules dealing with projecting the past, film, media, and heritage, and also the origins and legacies of religion, of archaeology. Now, if we move through to second year, again, our modules are year long, and this structure, as I mentioned, offers that learning, depth of learning and breadth of engagement as well. And here too, you start with core modules. So we have approaches to history, which explores themes and historiography, and also allows you to develop those core skills of analysis as well. And this is taught through lectures on theories like Marxism or gender, and approaches like environmental or digital history. So here you can think about the different trends that have developed in history writing as a whole. Now, the second core course that runs alongside this is Exploring Historical Debate. And this is where you produce an extended project on a subject that you choose quite closely with your supervisor. So you work with one historian in the department, you have regular meetings, supervisions with them, they read your work. And by the end of it, you produce an essay of 6,000 words. And this focuses on how and why historians have disagreed on a particular theme or area. So it might be, for example, on the causes of the Second World War or the rise of fascism in Europe. So you look at how and why disagreement has developed. And this is really important because it really strikes at the core question of how and why historians can be presented with the same body of evidence, but reach slightly different or sometimes quite strikingly different conclusions. Now, I've mentioned the core courses for year two, but of course, we have the centerpiece of the option modules, of which you take two. And these are all research-led. They're taught by a mixture of lectures and seminars. And by this point, you'll be starting to work much more closely with primary source documents. And in these modules, we explore broader themes, but you tend to drill down into much more depth than with the year one option courses. And you can see here that we have, for example, if you're interested much more in the modern period, units on France from the late 19th century up to 2012, courses on society and culture in Wales, into the vortex, Britain and the First World War, and a whole host of units that deal with 19th and 20th century Europe. If you're a bit more interested in the medieval and early modern periods, we have, for example, the American Revolution, race and power in the US, and themes like, for instance, heresy and dissent in the medieval period. So there you can think about the rise of the Inquisition and the punishment of suspected heretics. Moving through to year three, again, we have this core unit that all single honours students take. And this is your dissertation, which in many ways acts as the culmination of your history degree. So it's intended as the pinnacle of your studies. So the piece of writing that you produce for this is 10,000 words. It's a sustained piece of historical writing. There's no set classes for this unit. There are some introductory lectures, but instead you have one-to-one sessions with your supervisor, and you write and develop your study working quite closely with them. Now, there is some excellent work that is produced from this unit, and several years ago, one of our final year students actually won the History Today magazine prize for her thesis on highway women in the early modern period. So there's some tremendously exciting work that you all produce when you reach this level. Now, if we turn to the year three option modules in more detail, if you're single honours, you take 3 of these courses, one of which is attached to your dissertation. And you can see here that the courses are becoming increasingly research-led. They're becoming more specialist as well. And we have units on European history, for instance, fascism and anti-fascism in France, on the history of Asia, so for example, race, sex and empire in India. And again, moving back to that slightly earlier period, the world of the Anglo-Saxons and witchcraft and witch hunting. History at Cardiff is very much recognised for the high standard of the research culture that we maintain. In terms of the 2014 REF, 83% of our research was assessed as world leading in terms of its quality, so world leading or internationally excellent. And our research environment was also rated as conducive to producing research of some of the very highest quality internationally. So that research basis that all of your supervisors will have feeds through into teaching. Now, I wanted to just finish up with a few words about the additional support that we provide for you when you arrive at university and you get settled into the history department. So every history student is assigned a personal tutor. If you're a joint student, you're allocated a personal tutor both in history and in your other subject as well. So you've got sort of 2 points of contact there, one in each department. And personal tutors provide you with that academic and pastoral support that is really crucial throughout your undergraduate degree. You have regular meetings with us and also contact through the Year 1 core unit, History and Practice. So if you're enrolled on that, most often we will pair you up in the seminar group of your personal tutor. And again, that allows us to ensure that you're getting settled in okay and to be there if any issues arise. Now, history itself as a subject is part of a wider school. So it's the School of History, Archaeology and Religious Studies. And within this, we foreground different initiatives related to employability. And again, this is going back to the point about the different professions that you can go into with a Cardiff history degree, and how we support you and help you get ready for the world of work. So within the school we have a professional placement officer, which you can learn a little bit more about that scheme when you arrive. We also offer workshops directed specifically both at history students and arts and humanities ones more broadly. And also we have a newly developed employability module, and we run a program called Share with Schools, and this involves PhD and postgraduate students and some staff members going into high schools, sometimes primary schools, along with students on the history degree, and you become trained up in terms of how you present your research and how you present objects and ideas to primary and high school level students. And again, this is really invaluable for those of you who want to go into teaching, into heritage or perhaps museum studies too. Now, usually we really love having students to come and visit us in the department. It's one of the highlights of the academic year, the different open days that we have and the offer holder days. So we're really sorry that we can't do this on this particular occasion. But I just want to emphasize the fact that if you've got any questions, any queries, or any concerns arising from the current situation or from the presentation that I've just given, please don't hesitate to contact us, and our contact details will be available online. Okay, thank you very much.